everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams with our good friend Alan Steinberg as we get ready to look at the preview to the midterms, and we waited to the very last minute so we could get you all the best information. Beginning with Alan, you started a bit of a firestorm here on Twitter with your Ledger column today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the New Jersey Star Ledger and that op-ed piece that you did?
Yes, I wrote an op-ed piece, and the title was I left the GOP because Trump is no Reaganite. He's a fascist who's a danger to our republic. And I honestly feel that way, and I know there are a lot of Republicans, a very substantial number, who have left the party of Reagan because it's no longer the party of Reagan. It is the party of Trump. And Trump is antithetical completely to what Reagan was all about, but people are afraid to say that. I felt that I had to speak out on this. You know, I'm a known quantity in New Jersey, and my articles have been published nationwide, and we're on the eve of the midterms, and I feel that the re-election of a Republican House and Senate really could do substantial damage to our nation because they would be totally compliant to the wishes of Donald Trump, who does have an anti-democratic, pro-authoritarian agenda. And someone had to speak out, and I did.
That's democratic with a small d.
Absolutely. I'm hoping that the Democrats with a large D win. However, let me note that I've left the Republican Party to become an independent. I could always endorse Republicans in other elections. But for right now, I think that in this election, we need a check against abuses of power by Donald Trump. And the best way of getting that is the election of a Democratic Congress.
Well, let's start right there. Now, you know, one of the things that we want to help people with is the early returns. You know, what can we see in a way of a pattern? And so as polls begin to close in that 7 to 8 o'clock hour, let's start with your New Jersey, because there's quite a few seats in New Jersey where that can be a bit of a tell. If we start seeing seats in Jersey that were traditionally Republicans starting to turn blue, that could be very important one. I'm going to lead you into the New Jersey situation. Take that one.
Certainly. There are 4 seats currently held by Republicans that are considered at risk in this election. One of them, the 2nd District, which is Atlantic City, and also the county below it, Cumberland County and Cape May counties, that is considered at risk, but it's almost a certainty that the Democrat Jeff Andrew will win. He is running against an absolute reactionary in Seth Grossman. I call him Seth Grossman from the Pleistocene epoch. So that seat is sure to go to the Democrats. There are 3 other seats. One is the seat that is being vacated by Rodney Frelinghuysen, a Republican, a very dear friend of mine whose father was a giant in the House of Representatives, as Rodney has been. Rodney was the chair of the Appropriations Committee, and since he came to the House of Representatives in 1996, he has held a lot of very critical positions. So Rodney decided to leave the House at the end of this term. There is a Democrat who is running in for the seat that is likely to win, Mikey Sherrill. Mikey is she's a former naval officer. She's a graduate of the Naval Academy. And she's an example of how the Democrats, rather than the Republicans, are recruiting retired veterans to run for office. And in effect, the Democrats are seizing the veteran brand from the Republicans. It used to be that people like John McCain and other veterans would run as Republicans. That's no longer the case. So that seat is likely to flip to the Democrats. Another seat likely to flip to the Democrats is in the 7th District, where Leonard Lance, the incumbent, who's been a centrist, who has been independent of Trump from time to time, is running in a district that is so eager to send a message to Trump. Even though they like Leonard, they're likely to vote for his opponent, Tom Malinowski, the Democrat. So thus far, that's 3 Republican seats that are about to flip to the Democrats. The 4th seat is a contested seat down in Burlington and Ocean County, The incumbent congressman is Tom MacArthur. He's running for re-election against a Democrat, Andy Kim. Tom has had very good ground game efforts. He's done good constituent service as a congressman, and he's likely to survive. So out of those 4 seats, 3 of them are likely to flip to the Democrats. 1 will remain a Republican, and what that means for the state as a whole, you will have 10 Democratic members of their 12-member state House of Representatives delegation, and only 2 Republicans, 10-2 Democrat in terms of members of the House of Representatives from New Jersey.
So
in
you
the
see,
Senate race,
I was just going to say, so you see 3 of the 4 seats flipping.
Absolutely, and of the total net gain needed by the Democrats, they need a net gain of 23 to take over the House of Representatives. They're well on their way with those 3.
3
they
right
really
there.
are.
Yeah.
They're right there. In the
Go
we're
ahead,
going to know that early in the evening.
Right. Polls close at 8:00 in New Jersey.
But the problem is that I think the count is going to be slowed by the vote by mail.
Okay.
It's a mixed blessing, vote by mail, because you have to count the ballots by hand. In a way, the positive feature of it is it gets a larger voter turnout, but the negative is it slows down the count. So if you have a close race in that 3rd district with Tom MacArthur and Andy Kim,
right.
it may not be decided for 2 or 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's how the vote by mail, and the vote by mail has been fairly substantial. One of the good things about vote by mail in New Jersey is it's encouraged more participation of millennials and new voters. A bad feature is it slows down the count.
Well, that actually can be said nationwide. There's been a tremendous uptick in vote by mail. So I'm looking for that to be, as you say, it's slower, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is the result, not necessarily how quickly it gets there. You're about to talk about the Senate race, which is a bit of a mess there in the state of New Jersey, to say the least.
Here's what it comes down to. Bob Menendez, to say the least, the Democrat incumbent senator, does not have a good ethics record. He was rebuked by the Senate Select Committee on Ethics. His opponent, Bob Eugen, a Republican, has a questionable record in terms of his activities as the chief executive officer of Celgene, which is a maker of very high-end proprietary drugs, including cancer drugs. Their evidence was that Celgene vastly overcharged the patients and the users of prescription drugs. So he has baggage his way also. I think the reason Menendez has an edge, the number one issue in the state is Donald Trump. And Bob Eugen was the campaign leader of Donald Trump in New Jersey. He also was his number one contributor. So when Eugen turns around now and says that he's going to be independent of Trump, he'll stand up to him, the inclination of the voter is to laugh at him. He's one of the most pro-Trump people in New Jersey. He supported Trump's nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. And so the idea that he somehow will turn into this fighter against Trump, it sounds like a hoax. So I think because of the Trump issue, Bob Menendez is likely to win and be reelected to a 3rd term.
Let's talk about Pennsylvania, suburbs of Philadelphia, where Charlie Dent retired. And, of course, Charlie, someone who's a respectable centrist Republican, got tired of what was going on and decided, you know what, I'm going to take a time and take a check out here. So key votes in the Philadelphia suburbs, looks like that could be a couple of flippable seats in those areas.
Absolutely. And Pennsylvania, as you know, in the 2016 election, by a very hair's breadth margin, went for Donald Trump. That was one of the 3 states that put Trump over the top in the Electoral College, even though he lost the popular vote. As such, the vote that put Trump over was basically a disillusionment. The 2 things put him over. Number one was disillusionment among white working class voters. And number 2, the African-American turnout was far less than it had previously been. This time in Pennsylvania, I think the African-American turnout will be rather large. There's a lot of anger at Trump. because of his agenda, which really does not address African American civil needs and economic needs. So that turnout will be there. The other thing is that there's disillusionment among people who supported Trump in 2016. Even though the job number is up, wages are only starting to go up right now, and there's inflation that's going up with that. So there's disillusionment that Trump did not deliver everything he promised. And I think that, as you said, quite properly and quite accurately, that could lead to the flipping of 2 or 3 seats in Pennsylvania. You add those to the 3 seats in New Jersey, and you got 6 out of the 23 right there.
One of the other things that I think is going to be a major player in that is the state Supreme Court in January threw out a 6-year-old congressional district boundary system, which they felt was unconstitutionally drawn by the Republicans, which gives these new replacement districts approved by the Democratic majority to create far more competitive, contests. And I think one of the places where we saw that in the Pittsburgh suburbs, a place that you and I are quite familiar with,
right,
where Connor Lamb won, I think it's not going to be as difficult for Connor Lamb to pull it off this time because the district is actually no longer there, the one he won, but the one that he's in the middle of fighting for, I think is going to be a little bit more to his, a little bit more to his liking and to his constituents' liking. So I think they're going to pick up probably 2 in the Philly area and they could hold Connor Lamb in the Pittsburgh area and perhaps pick up 1 or 2 more.
I heartily concur with what you said. Pennsylvania also is undergoing a change in the demographics of the electorate there. Millennials are coming into in substantial numbers are coming into the electorate. The economy of Pennsylvania has changed. It's no longer a heavily unionized Western Pennsylvania, for example, with heavy industry. More high tech is moving out that way. I'm always astounded at the times I've gone out there to notice the economic change, but it's not happening enough for people because there still is substantial unemployment. But all this works to the Democrats' benefit. And I think that if the Democrats get a net gain of 3 seats here, add that to the 3 in New Jersey, and Jim, I feel like we're on a telethon. We're moving towards that magic number of 23, but we really are.
Right. It's like, it's like the Jerry Lewis, but, it's funny. It may take the 21 hours like it used to take the Lewis telethon to get it over.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the Midwest, Kansas and Minnesota. It's really, Minnesota doesn't surprise me that there'd be Democratic pickups in Minnesota, but certainly Kansas has been ruby red for quite a while. Yet another situation where we've got some possible wins there, and it really looks like Steve Watkins, who's an Army veteran, an engineer, he's battling for the vacated seat, which was did belong to Lynn Jenkins, who retired, but it's going to be very, very tough for him to hang on to that seat because they do have a couple of really good, people in there. So that's going to be a tough one. I think that Kansas, picking up a seat in Kansas, not an easy thing, but certainly not an impossible thing for sure. Let's move. Go ahead.
Not only in Kansas do you have the issue of the congressional seats, but from polls I saw recently, the governor's race out there is extremely close.
Yeah, we're going to get to the governors here soon.
Okay, but I just mentioned that parenthetically here, if I might.
Not at all. Go ahead.
Looking towards 2020, and I've learned this over my years in competitive politics. The governor can do a lot legitimately and legally in terms of state party building by using his powers, legitimate powers of patronage, and also assistance to local areas. A governor can do a lot for party building. And that will be a problem for Donald Trump if he's not removed from office sooner because of the Mueller investigation. If he survives to run for re-election, he will be facing a number of Democratic parties throughout the country due to the new governors. So if I'm Trump on election night, 2 days hence, I'm sitting there worried about the new governors as well as the makeup of the Congress.
Absolutely. We're going to get to those governors in a minute, but there's two more things I want to go to. One, Iowa. And that, of course, is Republican Steve King. Now, Steve King has come under national scrutiny because of his alliances with some very strong alt-right people and his inability to figure out a reason why he should disavow them, which has put him square in the crosshairs of J.D. Shulkin, who is his opponent out there. What are the chances you think that Iowa flips King out?
I think there's a good chance. I wouldn't say that it is better than 60-40, but right. People of Iowa are a good people, a lot more modern than most Americans in the East think. They're embarrassed by the presence of someone like Steve King in the congressional delegation. He has very reactionary views and expresses his thoughts in a very reactionary manner regarding race and poverty. And it's a real problem for a party that is trying to rebuild its image. Iowa's suffering through the era of Trump as well. He carried Iowa in 2016. Given the tariffs that have taken place and the effect that it's had on American farmers in terms of overseas markets, Trump is encountering a formidable obstacle to winning these states on the Great Plains. So you combine that with the absolute stupidity and bigotry of King. That could be a perfect storm for his removal.
Well, the 4th District, and you hit on the key point out there. The 4th District is a heavy farm district, and that's where King, represents. There is a very strong anti-King situation there because the tariffs have really come down hard for soybeans and other crops that are definitely grown out there, and that's farm country in Iowa. And District 4 is one we're going to definitely be watching polls close in the state of Iowa, Eastern Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And we'll be watching District 4, Steve King. The bonanza for the Democrats could be the state of California. There is an absolute and total plethora of possible pickoffs in the state of California.
I'm not as confident of a large Democratic pickup there as I was earlier. It seems that in a number of these districts, the Republicans have mounted a good ground game effort in terms of being prepared to get their voters to the polls. It was different at the beginning of the Trump term when basically people seemed to be politically exhausted. The Democrats were energized by what they viewed as the absolute repulsive nature of the Trump agenda, and particularly large Hispanic concentrations out in California were energized to go to the polls and vote the members of Congress from his party out and eventually vote him out. But it seems to be a lot less energy in California right now than there was earlier, but we're going to find out on Tuesday night. A lot of questions are going to be answered.
Absolutely. One quick other, actually two quick other points. Virginia, and specifically Dave Bratt, who took Eric Cantor out in 2014.
Remembered well.
Yeah, in the Richmond area, for those of you who want to keep score. All right. The Democrat is Abigail Spanberger. She's a former CIA officer with a very strong record. And I'm telling you right now, I think Abigail Spanberger is going to beat Brad, in that seat. Northern Virginia has turned dramatically purple and more bluish than purple in recent years. And you don't think of of Richmond as being a Northern Virginia, Washington suburb, but it certainly is getting there. And as part of the record number of women running this year for Congress, Spanberger has been really a formidable woman and a very talented lady and a very talented campaigner for a first timer. And so I do think that if you're going to watch, folks, keep an eye on the race between David Bratt and Abigail Spanberger. Polls close in Virginia at 7 p.m. So that should
Let
be
me
a good
take
one.
that one step. Let me take
Sure.
that one step further.
Okay.
I think that Northern Virginia really is a separate blue state. I say that because the number of high technology, both entrepreneurs and managers, has multiplied in Northern Virginia at a very rapid rate. I think also the number of government workers that have settled in Northern Virginia has affected the legislative climate, because these are individuals that tend to vote Democratic, vote in a liberal direction. So I think that opportunities in the future for the Democratic Party in Northern Virginia are outstanding. What Richmond, in that area, you're starting to get into a zone of transition from blue to red, but it will be interesting. But I felt that at the time he was elected, David Bratt was somewhat out of sync with his own party in many ways, and it was a very bad loss losing Eric Cantor, because he was a very good legislative crafts person.
Well, one place where Florida has an issue coming up with regards to the House is it's quite possible that they picked the wrong candidate in this place, and that is former University of Miami president, former HHS director Donna Shalala is
Right.
in a much more difficult battle against Republican opponent Maria Salazar, who's a Cuban-American and a former broadcaster. She speaks fluent Spanish. She's tapped into the Cuban community. And not only is Shalala not necessarily overwhelmingly liked in that part of the state, but Shalala doesn't even speak Spanish. And to run in that district in Greater Miami and not be able to speak Spanish, and she's holding on to a tight 2-point race in a congressional district that Clinton won by 20 points. So that might be one of the opportunities for the GOP to flip a seat back.
Well, I think that the Democrats made an unwise move in nominating Shalala. She was a very competent member of the executive branch of government, very competent cabinet officer and office holder, but that doesn't mean you're going to be successful as a candidate. And it seems that while the music may be, every election has a musical tone to it, while the music may be military marching bands, Donna Shalala seems to be listening to opera. So I think there's a tension there, and I have a feeling she'll win, but it will be a very narrow margin.
Absolutely. Well, tell you what, everybody, when we return after these words, Alan and I will take a look at those 36 governor's races. We're going to break down the most competitive ones. So keep listening. We'll be right back after these words. I love books. I really do. And I would love to read books. But, man, I know you're just like me. Your schedule is so slammed that getting to read a book is it's tough. It's tough to do. Can't read anywhere near what you'd like to. And, some great stuff is passing you by. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I decided to download the Blinkist app on my phone. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a game changer. Last week alone, I was able to read Rocket Man, which is a great story about Apollo 8 written by Robert Kurson. I read Chasing Hillary by Amy Shosak. It's a super book, folks. It's an insider's look into Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. I went old school and read a book called The Doomsday Machine, Confessions of a Nuclear War Planner by Daniel Ellsberg. And I also got in Alan Fisher's great book, Valley of Geniuses, about the people of Silicon Valley and how they changed the world. I know what you're saying. You're saying, wait a minute, Williams. You just told me that you didn't have time to read one book in a week and you got through 4? Yeah, I'm telling you why. It's Blinkist. It is the app that will change the way you read or listen to books forever, okay? You can find over 2,500 best-selling nonfiction books distilled in a way that allows you to read or listen to them in just 15 minutes. That's right. Now, over 7 million people are using Blinkist every day to glean the insights they need to become better at everything, okay? It's all there. It's all easy to do. Now, I've read classics like How to Win Friends and Influence People While Eating Breakfast. I listened to the Amazon current bestseller Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House while I was writing my column about Donald Trump. It's that simple, folks. Blinkist is constantly curating and adding new titles from the best of lists so that you're always getting the most powerful ideas in a mobile format, okay? I'm proud to be one of the 7 million people using Blinkist to expand our mind 15 minutes at a time. So let me show you how we get started, all right? You ready? All right, here's how we go. For a limited time, the folks at Blinkist have a special offer for the audience who listens to this great podcast, the Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams, all right? All you have to do is go to Blinkist.com/Williams. That's Blinkist.com/my name to get that free trial. That's Blinkist, Blinkist.com/Williams. Blinkist.com, that's Blinkist.com/my last name Williams. And you get 7 free days to check out all of the wonderful titles on Blinkist. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, once you download the app, once you try it, you're not going to want to ever give it up. But should you ever wish to cancel it, again, no hassle. You can cancel anytime. It's free to cancel, no problem. But as I said before, go to Blinkist.com, Blinkist.com/my last name Williams. Take the 7-day free trial, and I guarantee you, you're going to love it, and you're going to become a member of the 7 million people, myself included, who are part of the Blinkist family, expanding our minds 15 minutes at a time. Folks, I am not kidding you when I tell you that this is the most important election in generations. Now, y'all know that we've spent the last year introducing you to progressive candidates from Florida and California. Why? Because we need to take back the House in November. Many of those progressive candidates that have joined us right here on the Politically Incorrect Podcast are men and women who are first-time candidates. Some of them have been gay and lesbians. Some have been black. Some have been Hispanic. They are progressive candidates that reflect the diversity of this country. And we have to take back the House. The Trump administration is waging war on women, the LGBTQ community, immigration, race relations, the poor, healthcare, and many other issues that affect our everyday lives. Now, I've been involved in politics for over 40 years. Other than voting, the most important thing you can do as a citizen to affect change is to volunteer. We need your help to return the party of Truman, Kennedy, Clinton, and Obama to take back the United States House of Representatives. Here are the numbers you need to know. Nationwide, there are 84 competitive races to win back the House. We need to flip 23 of them, all right? We're going to push hard to get all 84, but at the very least, we need to get those 23. So what can you do? Well, I'm proud to introduce you to my new sponsor, Swing Left. Now, what's Swing Left? It is a national grassroots organization focused on taking back the House in November's midterm elections. They connect people with things they can do that will have a direct impact on winning a progressive majority in the House and putting a check on the Trump administration and conservatives. This election season, our message is don't just vote this year, volunteer. I've done it through Swing Left, and it's free and easy. So far, nearly 500,000 people have volunteered to take action in the 2018 midterms with Swing Left, including me. When you join Swing Left, go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/my name, Williams. You'll immediately be connected with other volunteers in your area who are working to win races in nearby swing districts. You will find out where and how you can make a difference and impact the flipping of the House. And you got to start now because it is very important. But look, this is a very simple thing we're asking you to do, but it is a very, very important thing. Each of us has the power to change our country, save our democracy, but only if we do the work to take the House back, okay? Gang, we are getting down to crunch time. Trump and his conservative movement can be stopped before they do any more harm. But we have to get involved, okay? This is a turning point in U.S. history. It is worth our time. It is worth our energy. We need you to help. You can man call centers. You can pass out flyers. You can use your talents to help get candidates from diverse backgrounds that are running to save us from the Trump administration and his conservative cronies that have done so much damage so far. And trust me, folks, they are only in it for themselves. So here's what I need you to do. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join me and other volunteers in your area who will be working to win races in nearby swing districts. And do it today. You got to do it today. Again, here's what I want you to do. Go to swingleft.org/Williams. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Join our volunteer army, folks. We want to get the House back in the hands of progressives who will stop the Trump administration and the conservatives from doing any more harm. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, do it today because we have so very little time to affect the election in November. Thanks so much. Go to swingleft.org. That's swingleft.org/Williams. Do it now. Okay. Welcome back to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams along with Alan Steinberg as we break down and give you everything you need to know about the 2018 midterms. We're moving on now to the governor's races, and doesn't take long to get to Florida on this one, as our old buddy Tim Russert used to say, it's Florida, 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 and in this case it's Gillum versus DeSantis. And man, that has been every bit a pure six brawl from day one, and it hasn't stopped yet. DeSantis and Gillum, DeSantis, the Trump acolyte, Gillum, who is running as a progressive, yet he was the person who was running Hillary Clinton's campaign during 2016. Man, you and I have been all over this one, my friend. What are your thoughts?
I think Andrew Gillum has been very successful in two respects that has enabled him to maintain a lead. Number one, he's holding together the Democratic coalition of mainstream Democrats and progressives. That's a hard thing to do in this era. There are issues that are contentious that are dividing those two factions, but Andrew Gillum seems to have the political skills to pull it together. The other thing is that he has been a real star in terms of communication skills. He gets on that stand and he looks at his statewide audience. I'll tell you what I can compare it with. They used to say that when John F. Kennedy in 1960 debated Richard Nixon, Nixon was addressing Kennedy and he was addressing the people in the studio, whereas Kennedy was he viewed the debates as an opportunity to address the nation at large.
Mm-hmm.
When I have seen in the debates between Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum, that's what Gillum is doing. He's addressing a statewide audience. His appeals for tolerance and understanding are very refreshing in this era of Donald Trump and racial polarization and ethnic division. And so I think that Gillum, in a lot of ways, is achieving stardom by being the anti-Trump. And I think he's going to win.
It's funny. Everybody looks for, and and I know we both have not only covered campaigns, we've worked in campaigns. And, when you're working with a candidate, you look for that, drop the mic moment, that one thing. Mm-hmm. Because in a debate, nobody's going to worry about the debate. They want that one or two clips that you can take from the debate. And Gillum not only got the clip of the Gillum DeSantis debate, but I think he got the clip of the year when basically there was a contentious moment about race in the final debate, and Gillum turns to DeSantis and says, "Look, I am not calling you a racist. I'm saying the racists are calling you a racist." That clip went viral in about 25 seconds, and it doesn't. And someone was saying to me, "Well, what about the rest of it?" I said, "The debate is meaningless from this point forward. No matter what is said, the only thing anybody's going to remember, they're not even going to remember who Andrew Gillum debated. They're only going to remember that Andrew Gillum hit it out of the park with that line."
I agree with you, but I have one note of caution and hesitation that
Sure.
I'm basically addressing to myself, because I want to see Andrew Gillum win. I think it would be a great victory for racial tolerance. It would be a victory for healing. But I always worry when there's an African-American candidate about what they call the Bradley effect. Years ago in California, Tom Bradley was going into Election Day favored to win. And he lost to George Duke Mason. He was the mayor of L.A.
There you go. I just wanted to make sure that we got that in.
No, absolutely. And he was a favorite. They said he'd be the next governor of California, and he lost. And ultimately, it was due to the fact that voters, when they were answering the pollster, they did not, if they favored George Duke Mason, they did not want to say so because they were afraid that they would be identified as racist for doing that. Now, in the state of Georgia, I'm moving ahead just for a second. I'm digressing for a reason that's relevant to Florida.
Okay.
In the state of Georgia, I don't think voters have that hesitation. In Florida, though, it's a state, Georgia is a state largely composed, except in Atlanta itself, of people who have been there for a number of generations. A number of people still harbor the same cultural attitudes that their grandparents and great-grandparents did. But Florida, at least I don't think this way. I could be wrong. I don't think of Florida so much anymore as Southern. It is located in the South. It was a Confederate state, but Florida is a very cosmopolitan state. People have moved there from New York, from all areas of the country, from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and it has a very growing elderly population. I know my late grandparents both lived there in their late years because of the tax advantages, because of Medicaid possibilities, and all the rest. So I don't know if there is. I don't think there's a Bradley effect in Florida and Georgia, but I worry as to whether there is a Bradley effect in the polling in Florida. I'm not sure. I don't have the answer to that.
Well, you know what? I think that one of the key elements here, Andrew Gillum, who would be the first black governor of the state of Florida if he were to win, he's held the lead in all the polls. But let's to use your cautious way, and I wouldn't disagree with you on this, but the last three gubernatorial races in the state of Florida were decided by a single point. So I think it's going to be close, and we'll see. But I do think that Gillum has the wind at his back. As of our dear friend, both of us, Dan Maduri, was supposed to have DeSantis on his show. He's had Gillum on his show. He's supposed to have DeSantis on his show on Friday. They called him up at the last minute and said to make him available. Then they called up after the last minute and made him unavailable. I think they put him in the witness relocation program, and he'll be available after Tuesday, I think, if that's the case. But look, I don't take anything for granted. As a Democrat, I've never taken anything for granted, and I certainly don't take this one for granted. But I do think a little bit of wind at his back. Andrew Gillum is the one candidate in the race that actually has spoke to the actual issues. And you know, and I know, Alan, that when your opposing candidate can only sit there and tell you why people shouldn't vote for you, as opposed to why they should vote for them, that doesn't speak well. But then again, DeSantis, no, you can't count him out. That's for sure. Let's move on. Go ahead.
I think that race is nationally the most significant of the evening in many ways. Mm-hmm. Here's where my hesitation really comes in. It's on the racial angle. Mm-hmm. In terms of those robocalls that were made, right. That was chilling for me. I'll tell you why. I grew up in the era of Amos and Andy on television, and there was always controversy as to whether the show was racist, whether it put African Americans in a bad light. And I noticed as I'm listening to those commercials, the music from the Amos and Andy show in the background. Now, it wasn't for a few days until newspaper reporters started observing that. I observed that the moment I heard the commercial. I think that whoever made those commercials was a wicked person to begin with, an evil person. But this may be a person who is very skilled at demagogy, who has some sense from polling, from discussing matters at the grassroots, that it could work. And that's scaring me. I want Gillum to win so badly, but I'm going to be very nervous on that race until it is called.
Could not agree more. Let's go to Georgia. You just talked about it. Stacey Abrams, A Minute History. And she did get a break, though. And that was that,
Oprah.
Well, yeah, that doesn't hurt. But Brian Kemp, who is the unapologetic, ultra-conservative Secretary of State, was told by a judge that the little tactic they attempted, which was if you didn't get an exact name correct, on your ballot versus your identification card, or that you could have that thrown out. A judge threw that out, so that does make things a little bit better for Stacey Abrams. And again, that's a toss-up right now. It's it's a very razor-close race. I think it's last poll I saw, they were either dead even or Abrams had a point. But she's going to have to run up a lot of votes in Fulton County, which is Atlanta, and of course Cobb County, which is the suburban Atlanta area, I would think.
Let me tell you what gives me hope in that race for Stacey Abrams. Number one, in Florida, there is the economic issue of taxes. Florida has been a very low tax state, which has made it attractive for people like my parents and others who have moved in. Now, Andrew Gillum is proposing, and justifiably so, in my view, an expansion of government to accommodate the needs of education, both at the elementary and secondary level, at the higher education level. And he talks about doing that through corporate taxes, which is fine, which is economically sensible, which is fiscally sensible. I totally agree with him on that. And look, the corporations got such a break from the Trump tax cut without any real benefit to the economy. I think it's justifiable on the part of Andrew Gillum. However, that puts the tax issue out there. And it's never good to have a tax issue out there when it's identified, even if it's not a harmful tax. It's not a good idea when that tax issue's out there, when it's associated with a challenging party. And Gillum is a challenge in the sense that he's running for a seat that has been held by a Republican governor. You don't seem to have it that much in Georgia. There doesn't seem to be so much of a tax issue, and that could help Stacey Abrams. Mm-hmm. I also think that she's going to draw out a big vote. She is really an appealing individual. She started the race with very little perceived chance of winning. she has become, in the national media, something of a star. She does terrific interviews. You know, I heard her interviewed at the beginning of the campaign, and I thought she was certainly satisfactory. But now she's an absolute star of national talk shows. And I don't want to outright predict that she will win. I think certainly Brian Kemp suffered a deserved blow to his reputation for what appears to be voter suppression efforts. But I think Stacey Abrams, like, if you look at the betting markets, she's still an underdog, and I usually believe betting markets. But I think she could upset the apple cart.
You know, one of the things that that I'm concerned about in Florida, I think that the X factor to me will be women and the Parkland effect. Will the Parkland effect, the people who, you know, had the big march, who made, you know, all of that, will they come home to roost and will they vote? I mean, that to me, if women and Parkland come home to vote, roost, and the Democrats hold tight and they get the African American vote, using, for all intents and purposes, the Obama template, I think that Gillum wins. I think that there's only one way DeSantis wins, and that's if white people vote.
I agree.
So anyway, let's move on to Wisconsin. Speaking of white people, and does no offense.
Let's not get into trouble the way Hillary Clinton did.
No. That's the, yeah, exactly. not to make fun of anything here. The way I was leading into it. Speaking of white people.
I know what your intentions are. All good, my friend.
There you go. Speaking of white people, does Scott Walker get a three-peat?
I think he's going to lose. I think he's going to lose. Yes. You know, there was a time in my life where I was very supportive of Scott Walker. In fact, I was early on in the presidential race in 2016. He was going to be my candidate, but instead I opted for Jeb Bush. But the thing I liked about Scott Walker is that I feel in many states, including New Jersey, that the public employee unions have too much power. But over time, I think that in Wisconsin, his message is worn thin. And he absolutely was a non-factor in the presidential race. And when you get the image of being a loser, even if you lost at the national level, not the state level, it takes away your momentum. I think that people regard him as a tired alternative, and they want something different.
Well, I do, and I think that he hasn't kept up with it. And frankly, I think that if you look at Paul Ryan, Reince Priebus, all of the so-called Wisconsin mafia there was so much expected of them from the party, and it's not their party anymore. So
it's not. It's the party of Trump. I have to say this for Scott Walker. This is one factor about him I really have liked, is that he didn't make blatant appeals to racism. He certainly got a lot more support from the white community than the African American community, and a lot of that was a function of the fact that African Americans, and I say this in a positive way, are very active in the various public employee unions. They've contributed very much to the betterment of state government in Wisconsin. But because of their support for state employee unions, Scott Walker would be a natural foe. But it wasn't as if he made any direct appeals to racism. He didn't do that.
Let's talk a second about Ohio. It's going to be a tough race. Republican Mike DeWine, Richard Cordray. Cordray definitely has star power on his side. A lot of people like him. And DeWine, for some reason, in what I can only see is an absolute attempt at committing political suicide, has distanced himself from John Kasich and embraced Trump. I don't know that that's a wise choice in Ohio.
I think Cordray's going to win. I think that was absolutely foolish of DeWine. Plus that there's the familiarity factor with DeWine. He's been around too long. And I think in midterm elections, that is an opportunity for the electorate to congregate and to support someone new. And I think that's a factor that benefits Cordray. He really could have benefited, DeWine could have, by basically emphasizing a close relationship he had with John Kasich. Kasich is very popular in Ohio, but he foolishly sacrificed that opportunity, and I think that he's going to regret it. I think the Democrats are going to win the election.
Let's move to the Senate. Where if ever does the Democrats pick up in the Senate? Do they? I mean, I think we feel strongly that they'll take the House. I think we feel strongly that they'll win some very key governor's races. But that Senate, which once looked like a pretty good chance to possibly even flip there, I don't see them winning the Senate at this point. I see them picking up some seats, but I don't think they're going to win it there. Anything?
I think they're going to have I think they're going to have a net loss of one seat. And let me tell you how. The opportunity for the Democrats to pick up the Senate is limited by the fact that you have a number of Democrat incumbents in red states, and those are natural uphill battles. I think that the Democrats are going to pick up a seat in Nevada. I think that Jackie Rosen is going to defeat Dean Heller. Heller's the incumbent. He goes above and below 50%. That's a bad sign. That means that voters are going back and forth as to what they should do. And usually when you have an incumbent, they end up going the other way, particularly when it's a legislative battle. I think that the Republicans, however, are going to pick up two seats. The seats that they will pick up are the seats in Missouri. I think that Claire McCaskill is going to lose. And I think also in North Dakota, it's been a given that Heidi Heitkamp would be defeated. So that gives them a net gain of one. I think the Democrats also have not strategized very well in the Senate races. They really should have focused on getting Phil Bredesen elected in Tennessee. He was a popular governor. He had a lot of natural advantages. If he had been elected and the Democrats had been able to win both in Arizona with Kristen Sinema, as well as winning in the state of Nevada, winning those two, and then holding on to Missouri, which it looks like they're going to lose. If they had won in those three states and then also picked up Bredesen, they would have taken over the Senate by one vote. But they did not really emphasize Bredesen enough, in my view.
You think Flake's
bad strategy?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't disagree at all. Do you think Flake's seat goes Democratic to Sinema?
I thought so about a week ago, but I'm starting to believe that McSally, who has been an awful campaigner, is going to pull it out
she's a
somehow.
terrible campaigner.
Terrible campaigner, but that still is a red state.
Yeah.
And I don't know how quickly it's going to blue. It may take a few more election cycles.
Alan, I know you'll be at I-24 Studios in Times Square in New York. I'll be working in D.C. I know that you want folks to get some questions into you on Twitter. Why don't you talk to us about that?
Be analyzing the returns, and I would like input from the listeners if there's some news item they think I ought to focus on. So what I want you to do, I've started to do this on a number of TV shows and radio shows in which I appear. You can send me a tweet. Send it to @ASteinberg613. I'm very active on Twitter nowadays. I'm still active on Facebook, but I've started to become even more active on Twitter. So if you can, my private messaging is available to you. So if there are things that you feel that you can watch me on I-24, if it's on your local cable system, or if you can get it on your computer, but I want you to send me information that may be overlooked by the local networks or national networks wherever you live. I'd welcome that.
Special thanks to our dear friend Alan Steinberg. We'll be right back with more right after these messages. You know, I love books. I really do. And I would love to read books. But man, I know you're just like me. Your schedule is so slammed that getting to read a book is just, it's tough. It's tough to do. Can't read anywhere near what you'd like to. And, you know, some great stuff is passing you by. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I decided to download the Blinkist app on my phone. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a game changer. Last week alone, I was able to read Rocket Man, which is a great story about Apollo 8 written by Robert Kurson. I read Chasing Hillary by Amy Chosak. It's a super book, folks. It's an insider's look into Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. I went old school and read a book called The Doomsday Machine, Confessions of a Nuclear War Planner by Daniel Ellsberg. And I also got in Alan Fisher's great book, Valley of Geniuses, about the people of Silicon Valley and how they changed the world. I know what you're saying. You're saying, wait a minute, Williams. You just told me that you didn't have time to read one book in a week and you got through 4? Yeah, I'm telling you why. It's Blinkist. It is the app that will change the way you read or listen to books forever, okay? You can find over 2,500 best-selling nonfiction books distilled in a way that allows you to read or listen to them in just 15 minutes. That's right. Now, over 7 million people are using Blinkist every day to glean the insights they need to become better at everything, okay? It's all there. It's all easy to do. Now, I've read classics like How to Win Friends and Influence People While Eating Breakfast. I listened to the Amazon current bestseller Fire and Fury Inside the Trump White House while I was writing my column about Donald Trump. It's that simple, folks. Blinkist is constantly curating and adding new titles from the best of lists so that you're always getting the most powerful ideas in a mobile format, okay? I'm proud to be one of the 7 million people using Blinkist to expand our mind 15 minutes at a time. So let me show you how we get started, all right? You ready? All right, here's how we go. For a limited time, the folks at Blinkist have a special offer for the audience who listens to this great podcast, the Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams, all right? All you have to do is go to Blinkist.com/Williams. That's Blinkist.com/my name to get that free trial. That's Blinkist, Blinkist.com/Williams. Blinkist.com, that's Blinkist.com/my last name Williams. And you get 7 free days to check out all of the wonderful titles on Blinkist. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, once you download the app, once you try it, you're not going to want to ever give it up. But should you ever wish to cancel it, again, no hassle. You cancel anytime. It's free to cancel. No problem. But as I said before, go to Blinkist.com, Blinkist.com/my last name Williams. Take the 7-day free trial, and I guarantee you're going to love it, and you're going to become a member of the 7 million people, myself included, who are part of the Blinkist family, expanding our minds 15 minutes at a time. Welcome back to the Politically Incorrect Podcast. I'm Jim Williams, your host. Look, if you're not yet one of the over 50,000 people who've downloaded and subscribed to our podcast, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, we sure do make it simple. You can go to the iTunes store. Why? Because we are very proud to be part of the Apple Podcast family. You can find us at the Google Play Store. We're, again, part of the Google Podcast family, as along with, of course, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, TuneIn, iHeart, and, frankly, so many out there it's hard to even keep track. But all you really need to do is search The Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams. That's The Politically Incorrect Podcast with Jim Williams. Hit the favorite button or subscribe button, and each week you'll get a brand new edition of the podcast sent to your tablet or to your cell phone, or hopefully to both. Okay, so please do that today. Run out and subscribe. We greatly would appreciate it. Again, special thanks to Alan Steinberg for joining us on this. It was a fun opportunity to break down the midterms. Now it's up to you, folks. Go out and vote, okay? It is a very important election. You know that. I know that. Let's go out, let's vote, and let's really have a wonderful week, okay? So no matter where you are, get out and vote. Until next time, I'm Jim Williams for the team here at the Politically Incorrect Podcast saying, have a wonderful and safe week, and hopefully your candidate will win.